Marjorie Taylor Greene indicated support for executing prominent Democrats in 2018 and 2019 before running for Congress. Republican Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene repeatedly indicated support for executing prominent Democratic politicians in 2018 and 2019 before being elected to Congress. A CNN K-File review of hundreds of posts and comments from Greene's Facebook page shows Greene, who represents Georgia's 14th congressional district, frequently posted far-right extremist and debunked conspiracy theories on her page, including the baseless QAnon conspiracy which casts former President Donald Trump in an imagined battle against a sinister cabal of Democrats and celebrities who abuse children. In one post from January 2019, Greene liked a comment that said, "A bullet to the head would be quicker to remove House Speaker Nancy Pelosi." In other posts, Greene liked comments about executing FBI agents who, in her eyes, were part of the deep state working against Trump. In one Facebook post from April 2018, Greene wrote conspiratorially about the Iran deal, one of former President Barack Obama's signature foreign policy achievements. A commenter asked Greene, "Now do we get to hang them?" meaning H&O, referring to Obama and Hillary Clinton. Greene replied, "Stage is being set. Players are being put in place. We must be patient. This must be done perfectly. Our liberal judges would let them off." After CNN reached out to Greene, her personal Twitter account posted a statement in which she did not deny that she liked posts and replied to comments but claimed that many people have run her Facebook page over the years. "I've had teams of people manage my pages. Many posts have been liked. Many posts have been shared. Some did not represent my views, especially the ones that CNN is about to spread across the internet," she wrote. Greene did not specify whether she or a member of her team were behind the posts reviewed by CNN's K-File. CNN reached out to Pelosi's office for comment multiple times but did not receive a response. Though her tenure in Congress has only lasted a few weeks, Greene is already facing calls to leave the House for her role in fanning the flames of the Capitol insurrection earlier this month after she objected to the election certification process and falsely insisted that Trump would remain president. After Democratic Representative Jimmy Gomez called on Greene to be expelled from the House for her role in the insurrection, Greene condemned the violence at the Capitol and falsely accused Antifa, BLM terrorism, and Democratic politicians of stoking the insurrection. "I fully condemn all violence. The Antifa, BLM terrorism funded on Act Blue rests with Democrat accomplices like at Cori Bush, at Ilhan, at Kamala Harris, at AOC, at Tim Kaine, and many more. Those who stoke insurrection and spread conspiracies have blood on their hands. They must be expelled," she tweeted. Last week, Greene faced calls to resign from the survivors of the Parkland shooting survivors after Media Matters reported she agreed with comments calling the 2018 shooting a false flag operation, which refers to acts that are designed by perpetrators to be made to look like they were carried out by other individuals or groups. CNN's K-File found additional comments from Greene where she called David Hogg, a survivor and activist, #Little Hitler, and spread a conspiracy that he was a bought and paid little pawn, an actor, before she ran for Congress in 2020. Greene created a White House petition in January 2019 to impeach the House Speaker for crimes of treason, citing Pelosi's support of so-called sanctuary policies that are serving illegals and not United States citizens, and because Pelosi did not support Trump's border wall. In one speech promoting the petition, Greene suggested Pelosi could be executed for treason. "She's a traitor to our country. She's guilty of treason," Greene says in the video, which she posted on Facebook at the time. "She took an oath to protect American citizens and uphold our laws. And she gives aid and comfort to our enemies who illegally invade our land. That's what treason is. And by our law, representatives and senators can be kicked out and no longer serve in our government. And it's a crime punishable by death is what treason is. Nancy Pelosi is guilty of treason." In another Facebook Live broadcast from inside Pelosi's office on February 22, 2019, Greene suggested the House Speaker will suffer death or she'll be in prison for her treason. Notably, Greene never mentions a trial. In another broadcast from later that day, she suggested California Representative Maxine Waters was just as guilty of treason as Nancy Pelosi. In the comments of her Facebook posts, often promoting the petition, Greene liked a comment that said, "Through removal or death doesn't matter, as long as she goes," referring to Pelosi, and the other that encouraged Greene to beat Pelosi's ass. The petition for Pelosi's impeachment and removal for treason amassed over 420,000 signatures as of January 2021. On social media, Greene portrays herself as an opponent to political violence and casts Democrats as the real instigators of political violence, either real or imaginary, who get away with threatening calls for violence. Do any of you remember a day when talking about assassinating the president resulted in getting arrested? As in arrested in real life. Not FB, Facebook, jail. When was that? Pre-2016 I think, right? But if you are a conservative that's a different story, wrote Greene in 2019. While Greene notes in Facebook posts that she disavows and denounces violence, within the comments sections of Greene's Facebook page, commenters frequently cheer for politicians to be executed by hanging or firing squad. Elsewhere in her Facebook page, Greene liked comments that advocated to arrest Obama and former Secretary of State John Kerry, and one comment that said, "Hang that bitch," referring to either Obama or Kerry or possibly both of them. She also liked a comment that urged for Civil War 2.0 to begin. Greene, who has embraced and spread the baseless conspiracy theory about a deep state working to usurp Trump's agenda, suggested in Facebook posts that FBI agents disloyal to Trump were traitors. She liked a comment that said, "Trump already said there were some great ones working with FBI, but some have fallen and quite frankly need to be hung for treason." Another she liked said, "These traitors need to be put to death as an example of what will no longer be tolerated in our country." The viral meme of Bernie Sanders has been made into a crochet doll, and it's now being auctioned for charity. The image from President Joe Biden's inauguration of Sen. Bernie Sanders sitting with his legs crossed wearing brown and white gloves made a splash on the internet. Now, one lucky bidder can own a crochet doll made as a tribute to Sanders' inauguration meme. The unique doll is up for auction on eBay, with the seller, Toby King, promising 100% of the profits to Meals on Wheels America. I was talking with another crafter friend who told me Bernie had just sold some hoodies and donated all the proceeds to Meals on Wheels Vermont. And I knew that that is what I wanted to do with the doll I made, said King, owner of Toby Time Crochet. With the attention it was getting, I was hopeful Meals on Wheels would get a good donation. The starting bid for the handmade doll Saturday was only 99 cents. But by Monday the item had more than 149 bids, with bidding above $15,000. The auction ends Tuesday afternoon. Senator Sanders has long been one of Meals on Wheels' biggest advocates. And it's incredible to see how his unexpected moment in the spotlight is inspiring others to join the fight to address senior hunger and isolation, as well. Jenny Young, Vice President of Communications for Meals on Wheels America, told CNN, last week the Sanders campaign store started selling sweatshirts featuring the photo that inspired the countless memes. And all the proceeds are going to Meals on Wheels programs in Sanders' home state of Vermont. Young told CNN that Meals on Wheels America is an official eBay charity and that King selected the organization to receive 100% of the sale. Amid the pandemic, the demand for Meals on Wheels has skyrocketed as more vulnerable older adults find themselves homebound and in need of this vital lifeline, said Young in a statement. The awareness for our cause is needed now more than ever, and on behalf of the entire nationwide network, we greatly appreciate the support, just like the meme of Sanders. King's design and photos of her handmade doll went viral last week when she posted pictures of her creation on social media. She told CNN it took her 7 hours to crochet the 9-inch doll that is made to sit. A tiny wooden bench will be included with the doll. King from Corpus Christi, Texas, patterned it off the previous doll she made of Sanders when he ran for president in 2020. This time, she added the now famous brown and white knit mittens along with a blue felt face mask. "I just really like and support Bernie," said King, 46, who has been crocheting for 8 years. "I think he's great." The mother of 2 started crocheting, according to her website, when she quit her job to be a stay-at-home mom. She started making scarves and clothes before deciding to try her hand at making a doll for her daughter. King has since made dolls inspired by famous people ranging from the singer Selena to the cast of The Golden Girls, while the Sanders doll is being sold for charity. King is also selling the crochet pattern on her Etsy store so anyone can make their own collector's item. "The attention that my Bernie doll and I have received is unbelievable," said King. "I'm overwhelmed with gratitude." In the nearly 232-year history of the U.S. Senate, there have only been 11 black senators. Congress set a new diversity record this year with its highest ever number of women and racial minorities, including 60 black lawmakers. But that's mostly in the House. People of color have historically had a tougher time getting elected to the Senate. Newly elected Raphael Warnock is only the 11th black U.S. senator since the Senate convened for the first time in 1789. Only 2 of those have been women. And with the departure of Kamala Harris, the number of black female U.S. senators is now at 0. Voters in urban congressional districts tend to be more diverse and politically progressive, driving the higher number of minorities in the House. But that has had little effect on the number of black senators. Black U.S. Senate candidates, and especially black politically progressive Democratic candidates, have found it difficult to get traction and win statewide elections due to the default political conservatism in white-majority regions of the U.S., says Carlos Hill, chair of African American Studies at the University of Oklahoma. From slavery and Jim Crow laws to suppression of minority voters, black political candidates have long faced stumbling blocks. Hiram Revels, the first black U.S. senator, took office in the late 1800s as part of a wave of African American lawmakers during the Reconstruction era. But he was elected by the Mississippi legislature, not the state's voters. Decades of voter suppression has limited black voting power in the South, says Tobin Miller-Shearer, director of African American Studies at the University of Montana. Shearer also cites the incomplete legacy of the 15th Amendment, which granted everyone the right to vote but was undermined by states in the Deep South which disfranchised black voters through literacy tests, property ownership requirements, and other racist measures. It wasn't until 1965 that these discriminatory voting practices were outlawed by the Federal Voting Rights Act. Half a century later, black voters in the South are wielding new power, thanks in part to a push by former Georgia gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams and other organizers to register new voters and combat voter suppression. Black candidates can compete and win competitive statewide races if they are able to effectively mobilize the black electorate, Hill says. If the momentum created by Abrams and Warnock's recipe for mobilizing the black electorate can be sustained, we could begin to see more black representation in the U.S. Senate. Only time will tell. Here are the 11 black U.S. senators. Hiram Revels, Republican. Hiram Revels was a former barber and minister who served in the U.S. Senate from 1870 to 1871. Mississippi lawmakers chose him to fill a vacant seat, although he faced fierce opposition from his future colleagues who questioned his citizenship. Their argument was based on a 1857 Supreme Court case that ruled African Americans could not become citizens of the United States. Born a free man in 1827, the slavery era, he was an Army chaplain during the Civil War, working at churches in Kansas, Kentucky, and Louisiana. After the war ended, he settled in Natchez, Mississippi, where he was an elder at the African Methodist Episcopal Church, and built a reputation as a respected community leader. Mississippi was seeking readmission to representation in the U.S. Congress and needed to fill 2 Senate seats that had been unoccupied since 1861, when it seceded from the Union. Revels was offered the shorter of 2 terms, one set to expire in March 1871. Revels took the oath of office 22 days after the ratification of the 15th Amendment, which held that Americans could not be denied the right to vote based on their race. Revels was the 15th Amendment in flesh and blood, civil rights activist Wendell Phillips said. Blanche K. Bruce, Republican Sen. Blanche K. Bruce of Mississippi was the first African American to serve a full term in the U.S. Senate. Born into slavery, he could not attend school, so he sneaked in some lessons from a tutor hired for his master's son. He escaped at the beginning of the Civil War and taught black students in Missouri before moving to Mississippi, where he held several jobs, including a county sheriff and tax collector. Like Revels, he was elected to the U.S. Senate by the Mississippi State Legislature, not voters. Bruce served from 1875 to 1881. The former slave later became a plantation owner, and lived a privileged life that was a far cry from that of his black constituents. Despite moving in elite circles, he fought for the rights of freed slaves and was a strong advocate for black war veterans. But black people in Mississippi questioned his commitment to their plight. Edward Brooke, Republican. Senator Edward Brooke of Massachusetts was the first African American elected to the U.S. Senate by popular vote. He's also credited with integrating the Senate barber shop with his first haircut on Capitol Hill after his win. The former World War II Army veteran graduated from Howard University and then attended law school at Boston University. He served 2 full terms in the Senate, from 1967 to 1979. Brooke did not consider himself a trailblazing politician and maintained that he represented all his constituents. "I do not intend to be a national leader of the Negro people. I intend to do my job as a senator from Massachusetts," he once declared. He died in 2015 at the age of 95. Carol Moseley Braun. Democrat Carol Moseley Braun shattered barriers as the first black female U.S. Senator. Moseley Braun was also the first woman to serve on the powerful Finance Committee after Democrat Tom Daschle gave up his seat to create a spot for her. The Democrat from Illinois served only 1 term, from 1993 to 1999. Before joining the Senate, she was a prosecutor in the Office of the United States Attorney in Chicago and Assistant Majority Leader in the Illinois House of Representatives. She defeated both the Democratic incumbent and the Republican challenger for a seat in the U.S. Senate, becoming the first female senator from Illinois as well. But she lost her bid for re-election to the Senate and unsuccessfully ran for president in 2004. "I cannot escape the fact that I come to the Senate as a symbol of hope and change," she said shortly after being sworn in. "Nor would I want to, because my presence in and of itself will change the U.S. Senate." In the nearly 3 decades since, there has only been one other female black senator, Kamala Harris. Barack Obama. Democrat Barack Obama was the 5th black U.S. senator and only the 3rd one elected by voters. He took the oath of office in January 2005 after serving in the Illinois State Senate for almost 8 years. Obama served 1 term in the Senate before running for president in 2008. A former community organizer in Chicago and the first black president of the Harvard Law Review, Obama made history again as the first black president of the United States. He became the 44th president and served 2 terms. Roland Burris. Democrat Roland Burris was appointed in 2008 to fill President Obama's vacated seat in the U.S. Senate. Before taking on that role, Burris was the first African American to win a statewide election when he was elected controller of Illinois in 1978. After serving as controller for over a decade, he became Attorney General of Illinois. He served in the Senate until November 2010, when voters chose his successor in a special election. Citing fundraising difficulties, Burris chose to retire instead of running for a full term. Tim Scott, Republican. In 2013, Tim Scott of South Carolina became the first African-American U.S. Senator from the Deep South since Reconstruction. The former entrepreneur worked in insurance and real estate, and served in the U.S. House of Representatives before joining the Senate. He was appointed U.S. Senator in January 2013 after the resignation of his predecessor, then was elected to a full term in 2016. The lifelong resident of South Carolina has marveled at his family's remarkable journey, considering his grandfather once dropped out of school to pick cotton. "Our family went from cotton to Congress in one lifetime," he said last year. William Cowan, Democrat. William Cowan was appointed to fill John Kerry's seat after Kerry resigned in 2013 to become Secretary of State. Before his appointment, Cowan was a partner in a law firm and served as Chief of Staff to Massachusetts Governor DeWalt Patrick. His appointment in February 2013, a month after Scott, marked the first time two African Americans served in the U.S. Senate simultaneously. Cowan spent less than 6 months in the Senate and chose not to run in a special election to decide who would serve the remainder of Kerry's term. Democrat Edward J. Markey won that race and has since been re-elected twice. Cory Booker, Democrat. Cory Booker was the first African American to represent New Jersey in the U.S. Senate. He was the popular mayor of Newark, the state's largest city, before he joined the Senate after a special election in October 2013 following the death of Frank Lautenberg. The next year he was elected to a full term. The former Rhodes Scholar and Yale Law School graduate unsuccessfully ran for president in 2020 but was later re-elected to the Senate. Kamala Harris, Democrat. Kamala Harris was the first black woman to represent California in the U.S. Senate when she took office in January 2017. But she was making history long before then. She was the first black person and first woman elected District Attorney of San Francisco and Attorney General of California, a position she held until 2016. And she's still shattering glass ceilings. This month, she was sworn in as Vice President of the United States, the first woman, first black woman and first Asian American to hold that post. Many advocates had called for a black woman to replace her, but California Governor Gavin Newsom instead appointed Alex Padilla, California's first Latino senator. While historic, it leaves no black women in the upper chamber of the U.S. Congress. When you think about the history of this country, of the challenges that exist for African Americans, this is a real blow to the African American community, to African American women, to women in general, San Francisco Mayor London Breed said. Raphael Warnock, Democrat. Rev. Raphael Warnock's win in a Georgia runoff election earlier this month played a big role in highlighting the growing power of black voters in the South. Like Revels, his path to the U.S. Senate followed a key role in a pulpit of the black church. Warnock is a senior pastor at Atlanta's Ebenezer Baptist Church where Martin Luther King served as co-pastor. Black voters in Atlanta and its suburbs turned out in big numbers to help him win. In his victory speech, Warnock reflected on his mother's teenage days picking cotton in rural Georgia. He acknowledged how far the nation has come. Because this is America. The 82-year-old hands that used to pick somebody else's cotton went to the polls and picked her youngest son to be a United States Senator, he said. Along with Booker and Scott, he is one of 3 African Americans in the current Senate. Sarah Sanders expected to announce bid for Arkansas governor on Monday. Sarah Sanders, President Donald Trump's former press secretary, is expected to announce Monday that she is running for governor of Arkansas, a source familiar with the plan told CNN. Sanders has been seen as a likely candidate ever since she left the White House in the summer of 2019. The daughter of former Arkansas Gov. Mike Huckabee will likely face a primary challenge. Multiple top Republicans in the state have already announced a bid, but she is widely seen as an early favorite for the position. Asa Hutchinson, the current governor of Arkansas, is term limited. The governor's mansion is expected to stay in Republican control. While the state has elected Democrats in recent history, from former Governor and President Bill Clinton to former Sen. Mark Pryor more recently, Arkansas has politically veered right over the last decade. The state backed Trump with more than 62% of the vote in November. Sanders began considering running for governor before she left the White House in 2019. CNN reported at the time that Sanders, in multiple private conversations, had floated the idea and told colleagues and friends that she believes running for office would be a good next move for her. Sanders' run and expected primary challenge could represent a good test of Trump's continued hold on the Republican Party. Not only is Sanders well liked by the president, unlike many in Trump's orbit, she left the White House on good terms and in the president's good graces, but the primary experience she is expected to tout on the campaign trail is her work with Trump. She is a very special person with extraordinary talents, who has done an incredible job, Trump tweeted when Sanders was leaving the White House. I hope she decides to run for governor of Arkansas. She would be fantastic. There will be no Trump China collection due to cost and time. Source says the Trump administration will not have its own signature collection to display in the White House China Room, another departure from protocol for the outgoing First Family. Timing and exorbitant cost prevented outgoing First Lady Melania Trump from following through on the collection, the patterns and colors for which she had selected, according to a source familiar with the events. Ultimately, the china took too long to make and cost too much, the source said. Trump pulled the plug on the project at some point during the last 6 weeks, the source said. A representative from Melania Trump did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Each administration has the opportunity to design and have made its own official china collection, both for entertaining purposes and for legacy and future administrations to use, with the exception of few. Every administration since George Washington has done so. The nonprofit White House Historical Association has paid for past official china collections with funds supplied by its donors. But another source involved in the discussions of the Trump china told CNN the association had concerns with the price tag and decided it was too expensive an endeavor. The White House Historical Association was not involved in an acquisition project related to the Trump china, an official with the association told CNN. The official would not comment on the reason for the lack of involvement. The last administration not to use funds from the association for official china was the Reagan administration. A full official administration china service is expensive and an endeavor that takes significant time. The Obama china, planning for which began in 2011, was delivered in 2015. The color inspired by the blue waters off of Hawaii. There were 320 settings of 11 pieces each, costing more than $350,000, paid for by the White House Historical Association. Laura Bush's china selection totaled 4,500 pieces and cost $492,000, also paid for by the association. Bush ordered an additional, less formal 75 place settings to use for entertaining in the private residence, which was not paid for by the White House Historical Association. Trump most commonly opted to borrow place settings from the official Clinton china set for her White House events. The two Trump-hosted state dinners included. There are 300 place settings of apropos ornate, shiny gold plates and dishware selected by Hillary Clinton when she was First Lady. First Lady Ellen Wilson created the White House China Room in 1918 to display the china of presidential administrations. Healthy, young Americans will likely get COVID-19 vaccine in mid to late summer, experts says, with the U.S. now tallying more than 25 million COVID-19 cases. Experts say now is the time to double down on safety measures and speed up vaccine rollouts before a variant further surges infections. The best way to prevent the emergence of new variants is to do all of the things we've been talking about for months. Infectious disease expert Dr. Celine Gounder told CNN Sunday night, "The more you let the virus spread, the more it mutates. The more variants you'll have, but the U.S. continues to add staggering numbers of cases daily and faces several major challenges when it comes to vaccines. States say they don't have enough doses." And Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky said Sunday there's a lack of information on supply. "I would say one of the biggest problems right now is I can't tell you how much vaccine we have," Walensky told Fox News. "If I can't tell it to you, then I can't tell it to the governors and I can't tell it to the state health officials if they don't know how much vaccine they're getting, not just this week but next week and the week after. They can't plan. It likely will be months from now until the vaccine is widely available to the American public," Gounder, who is also a former member of the Biden transition COVID-19 advisory board, said. "We're looking at probably middle of the summer, end of the summer before the average healthy, young American has access to vaccination," Gounder told CNN Sunday. "Send us your questions for President Biden's COVID-19 team. U.S. should boost its vaccination goal," expert says, but while the rollout has been slower than many experts hoped, the director of the National Institutes of Health says it is now not as bad as some are making it out to be. "We are now averaging almost 1 million doses per day going into arms. And that's a pretty good trajectory to get to where President Biden wants to." Dr. Francis Collins told MSNBC Saturday, Biden has previously promised to administer 100 million shots in his first 100 days in office, a goal that has been criticized by some as too modest. "We need to do better than 1 million shots per day," Dr. Jonathan Reiner, professor of medicine at George Washington University told CNN Sunday. "Most of the shots being administered currently are first doses," Reiner explained. "But as we go forward, more and more shots every day will be the second vaccination, so the number of new vaccinations is going to start to drop until we get to a point in the not-too-distant future where every day the shots that are given are 50% follow-up and 50% new vaccinations. We need to do better. We need to vaccinate about 2 million people a day. That should be the goal," Reiner added. Agencies scaling up surveillance of variant. Meanwhile, Walensky also said Sunday the CDC and other agencies were scaling up both surveillance and studies of the new variant so that we can monitor these variants as well as monitor the impact they may have on vaccines. The variant called B.1.1.7, first identified in the UK, has already been detected in more than 20 states and, according to the CDC, is more easily transmissible. Dr. Anthony Fauci said it's possible it could also be more harmful. "We need to assume now that what has been circulating dominantly in the UK does have a certain degree of increase in what we call virulence, namely the power of the virus to cause more damage including death," Fauci told CBS Sunday. "Studies so far suggest vaccines will protect against the B.1.1.7 variant. But at least 2 studies have found another variant, first spotted in South Africa, could pose a problem for vaccines. That variant has so far not been detected in the U.S. But we need to expand greatly our genomic surveillance," Fauci said. "We know that it had not been at the level that we would have liked, but there's a lot of movement right now at the CDC level, including some input from the NIH and other organizations, to dramatically increase the what we call genomic surveillance. We've got to be ready for more virus changes for many experts. The variants are concerning but not surprising. The larger lesson to be learned is that the virus is going to continue changing, and the U.S. needs to be ready for that," Dr. Vivek Murthy, Biden's nominee for U.S. Surgeon General, told ABC Sunday. "We're in a race against these variants. the viruses interchange, and it's up to us to adapt and to make sure that we're staying ahead," he said. Murthy said this means there must be much better surveillance so that variants can be identified when they arise, that public health measures must be doubled down on, and that there should be greater investment in treatment strategies. Above all, this means we've got to invest a lot more in testing and in contact tracing, because they also are going to be essential, Murthy added. Fossil hunters think they have found the lair of a giant, predatory, prehistoric worm. Scientists think they have discovered the undersea lair of a giant predatory worm that lived on the ocean floor some 20 million years ago and would pounce on unsuspecting marine creatures. Paleontologists from National Taiwan University believe the 6.5-foot-long burrow was once home to a worm-like predator that would surface from the seabed to ambush sea creatures and drag them, alive, into its lair. Experts working in northeastern Taiwan reconstructed large, L-shaped burrows dating back to up to 23 million years ago from layers of seafloor using trace fossils, geological features like track marks, burrows and plant root cavities found preserved in rocks, which experts used to draw conclusions on the behavior of ancient creatures, using 319 specimens. Experts reconstructed a trace fossil of a dugout, dubbed Penachnus formosae, which was 6.5 feet long and around an inch in diameter. Insane morphological evidence indicates that the tunnels were home to giant marine worms like the modern-day Bobbitt worm. The Bobbitt worm, or sand striker, Unus aphroditoa, is an aquatic predatory bristle worm that ranges from 4 inches to 10 feet in length and lives in burrows it creates in the ocean floor. The Bobbitt worm takes its name from the Lorena and John Wayne Bobbitt case, in which Lorena cut off her husband John Wayne's penis with a kitchen knife. Living mainly in the Pacific Ocean, Bobbitt worms hide in long, narrow burrows in the seafloor and propel upward to grab unsuspecting fish, large mollusks and other worms before dragging them, still alive, back to their dens. In the study, published in the journal Scientific Reports, the report authors note that the retreat of an ancient worm and prey into the sediment could have caused the feather-like structures preserved in Penachnus formosae. They identified a high concentration of iron at the top section of the burrow, and believe the worm could have secreted mucus to reinforce the burrow wall. We hypothesize that about 20 million years ago, at the southeastern border of the Eurasian continent, ancient Bobbitt worms colonized the seafloor waiting in ambush for a passing meal, the report authors wrote. When prey came close to a worm, it exploded out from its burrow, grabbing and dragging the prey down into the sediment. Beneath the seafloor, the desperate prey floundered to escape, leading to further disturbance of the sediment around the burrow opening. They described